Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott back again for another episode of the Nolecast. As always, we'll thank our friends Tarpon Cellars Wine. TarponCellars.com is the website. Nolecast is the coupon code for 20% off. And a big tip of the hat to our friends in Napa Valley. As we get into it, Bud, let's talk about a 7-3 football team. I was fortunate enough to do another instant reaction where we'd not even responded to the game, just kind of sitting there enjoying it. Watching it play out in the final quarter where Florida State has another college football game wrapped up, and the instant reaction is but just kind of a enjoyable in-game chuckle at what's playing out in front of us. So we'll bring you in from there, get into it, and should be a very enjoyable Nolecast.
Man, I'm excited to do this one. I listened to the instant, awesome work as always, and so let's start off tonight with a stat. You know, I like the stats, and I know the audience likes when the stats are positive, and I'm pretty positive tonight. Through 3 quarters, total yards, FSU 374, Syracuse 74. Yo, dude, that does not suck, right? This Noles team is a good football team when it's healthy, and right now, it's pretty healthy. Your stars got to play like your stars, and they are. And your role players are playing like complimentary role players, and they're doing their jobs, and they seem to be well coached. And we can get into this, and I know we will. Like, that is the 3 worst conference opponents in the aggregate back to back to back that you've played. I think in a couple of years at least. I'm trying to remember. Like, sequencing matters in this, right? Just in the order. But damn if I don't wish this team was healthier in October, because you could have won all 3 of these last games in hindsight by multiple scores if you were super banged up. I wish we could have seen what happens if you were healthy in October. Because I do think with some luck and some, like, when your injuries happen, man, like that was in the fourth quarter, I'm watching that ball game. Like, man, you know, do I think this is a 12-0 quality team? No, absolutely not. But with the way these, like, the back half of your schedule is just collapsing. I mean, you're winning these games by 5 and 6 touchdowns. Part of this is you playing well. Part of this is just incompetence / just roster attrition that's eating some of these teams, right? What if you were healthy in October?
Yeah.
And you traded like your injury luck for November. I mean, you got a chance of being undefeated.
Yeah. It is wild to think about what could have been this year. And whether it's us or some, much younger and cooler guys in 15 or 20 years will probably look back and, reference the 2022 team and what ultimately could have been, because it is a great mystery. And defense is totally different with Fabian Lovett. It's a totally different defense. And you're right. We have to acknowledge the level of team, particularly the level of offenses that you've played the last 3 weeks, and who they've been and where they've been. But this is just this is an experience unlike anything we've dealt with in the better part of 8 years, as far as just a wildly competent football team that cares and is healthy. And in the year 2022, investment and health in November can help you win a lot of games. And it's going to be fun to see how many they can ultimately win this year.
No doubt about it. A couple things here. Trey Benson just looks like he's more confident each week, which, to me is awesome. He's a guy that, like, I still think you need to call things a certain way for him because he's more of a momentum runner, right? Like, he's a different skill set than Trayshawn. But when you do call it a certain way and when you block it, he's a pretty hard guy to tackle when he has momentum, when he actually gets up to top speed. He's always going to be more of a top speed than an accelerator guy. But
he's more of a top speed guy, and I agree with you with what you're saying. I will say, and I tried to articulate this in the instant, and don't think I did a very good job of it. We are seeing him mature. We're seeing him be better about when to try to get that top speed. We're seeing him be more patient.
Yes,
particularly
no doubt about the patience.
Those longer developing runs. You're seeing a running back grow up in front of us, and a lot of it has to do with just the amount of snaps he's able to get, and a guy that's carrying the ball consistently for the first time, ever in his college career and in general for 2 years. But it's, it's a guy who's kind of trying to figure out and starting to figure out how to kind of navigate his own gearbox, so to say,
Yeah.
and when to put it in what gear, and we're just seeing a running back grow up in front of us, and he's a hell of a prospect. So that may play into some of the questions and conversation that we have later in the podcast about roster attrition. But yeah, look, if you're losing kids because they're playing well and they're making themselves NFL prospects, that's a trade that you're going to make every day.
We go back to our discussion in the early spring when we got word that they were considering taking Benson. And it basically boiled down to running back, due to Mike's history with his offense, is not a position you need to reach for. Running backs in the portal or in the high school ranks will want to come play in this offense. So if you're going to take Benson off a serious injury like that, you better be damn sure, because he has very limited game film. He's a kid we liked in high school, obviously, meaning the staff. I didn't see him in person in high school. He was in the COVID class, I believe. You better be damn sure, because that's a roster spot you're using. Whereas other positions, you don't have a great history of developing guys. You might have to gamble a little bit, or you might not have the luxury of picking and choosing. But at running back, you did have the luxury. And, we got word that they had some testing data on him that suggested that the knee was healthy. I was like, okay, I mean, if that's really the guy you want. And they were right. We're seeing the benefits of that on this team right now. Another guy I wanted to point out transfer-wise, who I thought played pretty well. I thought Big Meech played pretty well, man. He had some nice blocks in this game. I was pretty impressed. He had a couple whiffs, but I just like how he stoned some of these quick Syracuse guys.
Yeah. It's coming along well for him, coming along for the entirety of the offensive line. Again, we are acknowledging the level of play that they faced over the last 3 weeks, and that'll be something that we always put through the proverbial filter. But you're still seeing an offensive line starting to impose itself on the game and absolutely dictate games, and that's again, not to just sit here and chuckle up a common refrain, but that's not something we've seen in 8 years or so. I mean, we went through the whole feces pie that we all had to eat as fans when it came to this offensive line, and talk about what, we might be okay in 3 years or something like that. That's 4 years is the conversation we had to have in 17 or 18, whatever it is. And it's incredible that you're, finally at a point here to where I'm not going to call this a great offensive line by any means, but you've got a good offensive line, and an offensive line that's playing a big role in more or less kind of conveniently convincing some of these teams to quit fairly early in the game.
Yeah, there's some business decisions being made. I think that the best thing I could say about this FSU offensive line, by the way, and you're right, they are playing with more physicality, but I think that physicality comes with confidence, right? And the confidence comes from the understanding of the scheme and the coaching, and it all kind of ties together. I do think Alex Atkins has done a nice job coaching this offensive line. They have fewer busts than they have had in recent weeks. Now, we were not worried about them getting whipped physically by Syracuse. We saw Syracuse get pushed around by multiple prior opponents. That's one of the reasons we were very confident that Noles would win by double digits. But we did worry about the blown assignments against the quickness and the scheme that Syracuse runs, because they are, I think, a well-coached defense. Now, I wonder if there's not some chaos going around there, just because it's kind of a house of cards when you lose a couple. You take a couple NFL-type defenders off Syracuse defense, and all of a sudden it kind of crashes down a little bit. Mm-hmm. And we saw that. They tried to play their corners a little more on an island, and FSU screened to death, which if we roll the tape, which we didn't cut any tape, so there will be no rolling of the tape. But we said, hey, you're going to have to throw passes underneath, right? Because they're going to allow a lot of completions. They won't allow a lot of deep balls, and you'll have to block them when you throw your screens. I mean, Jordan Travis played a really quality football game. Very few passes, if any, that could have been picked. He managed the offense, seemed to be in total control, varied speeds, seemed to get him into the right plays when he needed to. And yet, it was a very low-risk game plan from Jordan, too. And I was chuckling today with Bill Connolly. People are in his mentions on Twitter because he didn't mention Jordan for the Heisman.
For the Heisman. I didn't see him in the Heisman talk.
Bill asked me, he's like, am I missing something here? I had 2 separate sections in my column today about the Noles improvement and that they're playing, like a legitimate top 15 type team right now. And
did he see the touchdown reception? Because that's got to count for extra Heisman points.
It should.
It should.
So look, they're definitely better, but they just do seem they bust it less. I think part of that too is I think they trust Darius Washington at tackle, right? Jazz is more physically imposing than Darius is. Darius seems to make fewer mental errors, I think, personally, right? Like he's not amazing, but I think he busts less.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. It again, how do you separate some of this out with quality of competition? I think there's some weeks where the second string defense you're facing in practice might occasionally be better up front, at least, probably not in the secondary, than what you're getting on these games. Not against Miami, though. Against Miami, that actually was impressive, right? Just given the quality of opposing defensive line you faced. And yeah, man, this was good. Receiver play, very nice. I mean, McClain's sunning that dude.
That's
You ever watch those Twitter videos where the guy goes over the game from the past week? It's like Coach Go 30 or something like that, and he's like, "All right, pisses down your leg."
Yeah,
always open like your mama.
Always talks to Davis at the end of it.
Yeah, Davis. Yeah. Oh gosh. Other side of the ball, or sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, one, I always enjoy those videos, and particularly look for them after certain games have transpired. I also really appreciated those videos, like the thin attempt and hilariously thin attempt to like look like the coach that he's talking about from the week before or whatever. It's just whatever. Yeah, Saban one, and I think he did it. I can't remember. He's had some funny ones. As I look at our scroll here, I see that always fond of Louisiana hot sauce, and those are the 3 simple ingredients that we've been talking about for 5 or 6 years. But another one of our sponsors has but 2 simple ingredients, and they are elite and have been fantastic for us for 5 years now. No better team to work with than Shannon and Chad. You can reach them on the phone, 844 FSU Loan. It is a wild, rapidly changing real estate market out there, and the world of interest rates is one that you want as good of a partner by your side as possible. And there's nobody better than Shannon Young. So nobody more responsive, nobody in tune with how to position you best to get that best interest rate possible than Shannon. 844 FSU Loan. Simply put, best in the business. People that we've been so fortunate to work with, and people who don't just talk about Florida State, they support it. $250 from each loan goes to Rising Spear. Well done, guys. Ever so proud to work with you.
No doubt. And proud of this defense, right? I will say some things tonight about the defense. This defense is playing at a high level. They are doing what you should do against the type of offenses that they've faced in the last 3 weeks, which is basically terrible / non-functioning. I wanted to ask you this, and I should have texted the group chat. Why the hell did they play Schrader?
Yeah.
I mean, what are you doing? Like, they have to? I should not be unprepared. I should just look up Syracuse's schedule. Like, what is? Why wouldn't you let that kid heal up a little bit more? There's no way he was close to 100%. Like, did you watch him try to move? Look at how he ran all over you last year. That's not the same looking kid. He's not a good enough thrower to where if you don't have to account for his legs, he's worth anything. I mean, they have wins they could pick up. Like, what if he got hurt more because he's a sitting duck? I was floored when I saw just how poorly he moved. I mean, that was I was like, oh, this is not going to be close. Like, they're just going to tee off on his ass.
Yeah, it gives more credence to your thought that some of that was lower leg injury from a couple weeks ago as well. But yeah, no, not a good look. Not a good look. 2 weeks in a row, we've seen Florida State play a quarterback that I'm like, are we really doing what's best for this kid, putting him out there right now?
You saw the Mario stuff, right?
Where like his friggin' assistant SID had to bring up like the clearing protocol.
He was medically cleared, guys.
Yeah, I just wanted to, Coach, what's the protocol after somebody's medically cleared? Let's just and have you run into that recently? Yeah.
But, obviously when your quarterback is medically cleared at Miami and has a non-contact throwing re-injury, right? Like he wasn't hit on that play, the Schrader or not Schrader, but Van Dyke, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was, man, your defense came out and they smelled blood in the water and they just absolutely capitalized. They didn't think anybody else out there for Syracuse was a legitimate receiving threat, and they were correct in that assessment. But I do think Sean Tucker's still hurt. Like he had one run that looked like he had some kind of burst. I got Syracuse people thinking that he actually got hurt in the FCS game. It's not been the same since, and they were kind of annoyed that Syracuse kept running this kid late. But I don't want to take away from what Florida State's defense did because I have some questions about them going forward. And I'll talk. We have a ranking segment coming up, like where these guys rank in these certain, power ratings. But this is the result that you would expect from an elite defense to do, right? They put Syracuse out of their misery. They put Miami out of their misery, and they put Georgia Tech out of their misery. Like they squashed the bug. That's what you want a good defense to do, and that's what they did. Florida State cannot control that it has played 3 backup quarterbacks or injured quarterbacks or both in as many weeks. Okay. They can't control that they're the healthiest they've been all year at the time when they've played their worst opponents all year. It just so happens. Like they weren't as bad as they showed in that middle stretch. And we talked about that. When they get healthy, they're going to look better. They're probably also not playing at a top 5 defense level, but we don't know that because we haven't seen it. But what they are doing is they're playing assignment football. They're playing fast. They're playing physical. They're rallying to the ball. And even when it's blood in the water time and everybody's going to get a tackle for loss, I still think they're playing pretty disciplined football. I think Randy Shannon's linebackers look good to me, right? Like they're taking the proper angles. They're taking on blocks. They're funneling stuff. They're spilling stuff. It does look good. And, Verse and Lovett and Pat Payton and those guys are having a field day up front.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing well.
Watching 56 and 44 come of age is a whole lot of fun, and certainly will lead into some of the conversation we have as far as roster structure moving forward and what that looks like. But no, the defense. I'm trying to enjoy and appreciate this defense without sounding like a crazy hater as well, because you're right. This is exactly what an elite defense would do, and that's all that you can ask a team and a coaching staff to do. Would I have loved to see this defense maybe face a better passing threat as we're kind of trying to make evaluations of where we really are as a defense and how much growth has truly occurred? Yeah, and maybe I don't know. You're going to say that. I was about to say maybe the bowl game, but
we'll get there. We got a fun segment
nicely in
up,
our
man.
bowl projection segment, but who knows if you can really make a whole lot of fair judgments about a coach, and if you're question as to some of the changes or if there need to be changes on the defensive side of the ball, this is a tough little period of time to try to figure out whether or not that's a belief that you still hold, stay steady with or steadfast with, and whether or not these performances has changed your opinion. That's obviously only opinion that matters in that discussion is of but the head coach. But personally, I don't know if empathy is the right word. Guys getting a ton of money, gets to make decisions, but I do have some. I can acknowledge where that would be a hard evaluation process. Oh,
yeah, for sure. That's going to be on Mike to figure out if they have the right combination of coaching and recruiting, right, on that defense. A couple other things I like on the defense. Number one, Dent's graded out pretty well this month, so that's encouraging that they're seeing him, not go downhill. I did like that. Gainer flashed a little bit, so that was cool, right? Like, nice as his career is kind of coming to an end. Nice that you're seeing some plays, but I want to talk about this. How many snaps? Don't look if you already have it. How many snaps did the guy on this defense on Saturday with the most snaps play?
I don't have those numbers. Good 29? Pure
40.
guess. 40? Okay.
40. It was
I originally was going to guess 43. I'm glad I didn't. You would accuse me of sandbagging.
All right, so Keem, I probably would have. Keem had 40, and only 4 other guys had more than 30.
Okay.
How long has it been since this team has had blowouts in conference play to where you could get young guys in.
Mhm.
There's so many benefits to this, man. Like Ingram, it's been like 2013
Yeah.
since they had multiple conference blowouts, so where like you could actually put guys in. And the problem when you had Jimbo was that he played so freaking slow that the backups hated it, and the
Mhm.
parents would complain about it nonstop because you played so slow. You wouldn't, by the time you blowed somebody out, you had like 7 plays left in the game because you milked the clock from the opening thing. It was like you played like an army tempo, which is totally inexcusable when you have that much talent. But it's also, it does help prevent injury some if you can blow guys out. Like this is pure math. If you play fewer snaps, you probably won't, like, it's less opportunity to get
Just
hurt.
have to look back at the LSU game about making a
Yeah.
game competitive and the costs that are associated with it.
I mean, love it. Like, it's crazy hindsight bias, but if you don't play some of the worst prevent defense I've ever seen for the last 2 drives, maybe Lovett doesn't get hurt, right? So, okay. Um, Here's another thing for you. This is a motivational tool, both because guys know if they practice well, they'll actually have a chance to get in a game, which is something we used to have parents telling us, like, it doesn't matter how well we practice, we're not going to get to play because
Mhm.
this offense plays so slow under the prior years. It also allows you as a coaching staff to have a teaching moment, right? Because you could say, hey, you know that thing we get on you in practice about? You did that in the game.
Mhm.
You're taking what you do on the practice field to the game field. So why don't you do it right in practice? Those are all just really, really impressive things to me. I did like 8 tackles for loss in the game for the Noles, 3 sacks, but a boatload of pressure. And that's 3 sacks in 17 passing attempts, right?
Mhm.
To me, the defining drive was the drive after the fumble, right? So Cuse takes it. Was it after the fumble? I'm trying to, like, they went. Was it that? It was a drive early in the game, and Cuse basically went backwards. You know what I'm talking about?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, it was after the fumble. They got the ball on FSU's 23, and they went backwards 12 yards to FSU's 35, and they missed a 52-yarder. Which,
Mhm.
hey, maybe we jinxed the kid
Maybe we
because
jinxed him.
he is a
Absolutely.
pretty good kicker normally. Uh,
He's got a great casual style, real relaxed kicking style. It's just interesting to see that kid. But
yeah.
all right, man. We ready for the bowl projection? Anything else that you wanted to remark as far as
No, I,
Saturday
I
or
thought I
where the
thought you
team
said the
stands in
right
general?
thing. Like, this defense is playing with confidence and they're attacking, right? Do we wonder how they would play against a competent offense? Would they attack in the same fashion? Would they be able to hold up on the back end or cover? I don't know. I can't answer those questions based on what's happened in the past 3 weeks. All I can tell you is what I'm seeing and what I've seen throughout the year. What I've seen throughout the year, I lean towards no. What I've seen the last 3 weeks, they do seem to have renewed confidence, and they're certainly, like, they're absolutely better up front when they have their guys healthy. So I guess my answer is maybe. We'll see. And I know we have a question as well to get to probably during the Q&A segment. Or do you want to take that now?
Yeah, why
And
not?
yeah,
Absolutely.
it kind of ties into what we're talking about, I guess.
So this is from Caleb. Caleb is a Patreon of ours. Messaged us. Why does Bill Connolly's offense S&P Plus think so poorly of the Knowles? Uh, him currently having us ranked 38th seems laughable
On offense, right?
on offense. Yeah, yes, excuse me. Well, I did say offense S&P, but yeah, offense
Sorry.
S&P Plus.
All right. So obviously I'm friends with Bill. Like, I understand how his system works pretty well. I obviously use it in my picks. Like, I don't pick based on that, but I definitely look at it. So I do feel like I'm fairly qualified to answer this, right? And I used to just G-chat him daily and be like, "Hey, what about this? Why don't you account for this?" And he's like, "That's not a thing we could account for." Like, "Bud, you're set. You're a crazy person." Um, so right now, FSU ranks 38th in offensive SP plus and 26th in defense. Ask any FSU fan out there, do you think the offense is better than the defense? The answer is going to be yes. So why are some of the advancement? I hope, right? Like, do you know anybody who thinks his defense is better than the offense?
No, I don't.
Okay, I don't either, and I don't think anybody who watches them on a daily basis does. That's not to say the defense is bad. It's not a bad defense, but I do think the offense is better. So a couple reasons why, okay? If you look at like their offensive performance in some of these games relative to what they're expected to do, I think there's some things the system might be missing on a little bit. So pre-garbage time points versus expected, a number I pulled out for you, right? Because I was able to look at what Bill's system was projecting. So, all right, Duquesne is basically a wash. You scored about 5 or 6 points more. There's no garbage time in the LSU game, obviously. You scored about 5 or 6 points more than expected there. It was looking for about 17 to 20. So that's good. You scored the amount that was expected at Louisville. Louisville's defense is not very good, right? They're kind of like a turnover-fueled luck box of a defense, but like as far as actually getting stops, not really. So now Bill's system does not know that Jordan Travis missed the second half of that game. Ultimately, FSU still moved the ball fine, so it's not really super relevant, but it is relevant in that if Jordan stays in, there's a chance you score like 42 or 45 and not the 35 that Tate Rodemaker put up. Okay. Now, against Boston College, you put up more points than expected, about 17 more. Okay. So that was good. But, like some of that was them piling it on. You did score early, though, which is accounted for here. Now, NC State, or was that? No, sorry, I did Wake first. Wake, not a good defense. You scored way below expectations, 17 points below expectations against Wake. So the system is seeing, hey, Wake's defense is trash. Everybody scores on Wake. This Clemson offense that the national media wants to clown on drops a 55 burger on their ass, right? Like Liberty scored high 30s on them, right? Everybody scores on Wake. Heck, I mean, North Carolina had 3 drives in goal-to-go situations on Wake and still scored 36 this weekend. So it is dinging you and saying, hey, that's a red flag. You scored 21 points on Wake and didn't move the ball very well. It wasn't like you just moved the ball and then just did dumb stuff. Like you didn't move it. Now, NC State, it actually gave you credit for scoring more points than expected. That might seem counterintuitive, but NC State's defense at the time you played them was playing exceptionally well and still is playing pretty well on the year. Clemson, here's the thing. Different systems are going to grade the garbage time differently. Bill actually doesn't count all that fourth quarter stuff as garbage time. I do. Like when I'm making my gambling numbers, I don't give FSU any credit for those fourth quarter scores against Clemson. But still, you were below expectation against Clemson's defense. Now, part of that is Bill's system saw Clemson's defense as not very good, I think, because in the prior month, Clemson's defense was really banged up. Remember that Wake also scored like a 50 spot and they had all these true freshmen and safeties playing corner. Like they didn't have dudes. They had more of their guys back when they played you. I didn't think your overall offensive output against Clemson was really something to complain about all that much, right? Now, in weeks post, seeing what Clemson's offense has done, I think makes you a little bit salty about what the defense gave up to Clemson, right? I mean, given that they didn't look great against Syracuse, they moved the ball, in fairness, but now we've seen more and more what Syracuse might be, how they, Notre Dame kind of shut them down. Then your final 3 games. So Bill's system does not know that Georgia Tech lost Sims at the time, and you scored, honestly, like on the level as far as projection against Georgia Tech, which is interesting because Tech had been blown out earlier in the season. I think that your offensive performance at Georgia Tech actually was not that bad, right? I mean, you moved the ball really well. You had the one kind of goal line screw up. And in the last 2 weeks, you've been really, really nice, right? So 16 points over expectation against Miami and 11 points over expectation on offense against Syracuse. Again, this will probably normalize a little bit as people start to realize, wait a second. This is kind of like these 3 teams really are pretty sketch. So it's on the upswing I just think part of it is like when you played some of these teams. Meanwhile, if you look at the defensive numbers, this to me is interesting. So you held LSU 5 points under expectation of what it would be now. You see what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
LSU's gotten better. So you're getting credit for holding LSU to 23, but that was LSU's first game of the season. So, like they didn't look good off it. They don't look like the same team. But then again, Arkansas held them to like 13 this weekend. So, but Bama held them to what, 32 in Death Valley. So the computer's looking at all the relative scores again that they've given up, the relative yards per play, things like that, and making its numbers on this. Now, at Louisville, you and I think Louisville's offense is okay, but the computer doesn't like it. And so you giving up 31 to Louisville is seen as giving up like 4 points too many. But then here's the thing. Here's where FSU's defense is not, I don't want to use the word gaming the system because they're not, right? But you gave up about a field goal more than expected against Wake. So they don't take them that much for that. You held you held NC State way under. Now, this is where you start to kind of game the system and why I think they rank FSU's defense so highly. And why I think you need to adjust Florida State totals up, by the way, if you're betting them. You're getting credit for a 9-point under expectation, like to the good, against NC State. They don't know that NC State lost Leary in the second half of that game. Now, you did really well in the first half too, but I think the odds are that NC State probably scores a lot more points in the second half if they don't lose their quarterback and play a running back at QB. Then Clemson, you end up giving up roughly expectation, like a field goal worse. Then the last 3 games, just dominance. 8 points better than expectation against Georgia Tech before garbage time. 22 points better against Miami. And 20.1 points better than expectation against Syracuse. So it's not reasonable to ask computer system to know that like Georgia Tech, Syracuse, and Miami offensively are all just like dead teams walking right now. Like it's not going to adjust that fast to what happened in the last 3 months. You would need to make your own manual adjustments to this. But that is how the system sees the offense against the defense. Meanwhile, like those of us who watch the team know defense is playing well, offense is better than the defense is.
Can't promise that Bud will spend 8 minutes answering your question to all of our Patreons, but that was a comprehensive response and interesting look at it. But yeah, no, I mean that gives great insight too, Bud, into some of these ratings and how they get about. And Bill certainly has this one of the more accurate systems out there, and great to kind of hear a little bit of the nuts and bolts of it. You want to move
Vegas
to
basically stole his system, by the way. Like all these openers that come out on Sunday.
Really?
Like for the most part, if you just use Bill's stuff to bet, like just straight up like betting the Vegas openers, you're like nothing there. Like they're just kind of making them off his stuff and then adjusting, for some injury. But also, I will say FSU is number 1 in the country in passing explosiveness prevention on defense. So that they're doing a really nice job of that.
Okay,
really nice job. Yeah, let's do some more fun stuff here, man.
Will we see some of that lack of passing explosiveness in a bowl game per se?
Oh, I like this.
Where might you project it?
Yeah,
where perhaps there are other people projecting it.
Yeah, I do other stuff on Sunday, so I do not have time to make my own bowl projections. It's a good question. We kind of thought about this, like, okay, so Richardson is not necessarily a great throwing threat, and Igor and I were kicking this around before the show. Like, when will you see a quality passing offense? Because Louisiana may not be able to block you, and we'll see. By the way, you did hold Garrett Schrader to 2.3 yards per drop back. Just digging through a few more of the stats now, and a 15% success rate on dropbacks. Again, I don't really know why you played that kid. Maybe just you don't want to like have a mutiny from your season ticket holders by playing Del Rio, who's pretty sketch there. But like Richardson did not throw the ball well at all against South Carolina. They didn't need to. They ran for like 250 in the first half on the Gamecocks, who apparently still don't know the game has started in Gainesville. But like, I wonder if you play a good passing team in the bowl game. It'd be fun to see this defense, especially if you don't have opt-outs. And I don't think you should have opt-outs from guys who are going to be like late round picks. If you're a first rounder, I get it, but I don't think you should be opting out if you have a chance to have one more data point of balling out, right? Anyway, let's get to some of these projections, man. We haven't done this in years.
Yeah, this is fun. We haven't done this in years. I personally don't see a whole lot of opt-outs on this roster. If Fabian has his draft grade and decides to go, then that's one that comes to mind. Just because
he's been hurt,
already dealt with an injury, exactly. And a good kid, good locker room influence, but at that point, you know, your concern is elsewhere, and perhaps justifiably so. Sorry, I have a little bit of a coughing fit tonight. All right,
Maggie and the kids just got home from the beach, and both of them are sick.
Oh, good.
So I'm like, oh, great. Okay, I'm just gonna like stay up here in my office, and bring me food, please.
Well, that explains why we. Well, never mind. The hour explains why we haven't heard from him. All right, so this is fun. It's fun to talk about a bowl again, and Bud and I will clown on some of these projections and perhaps anticipate have a hopeful, optimistic sense of anticipation that others occur. But all right, so let's go to this Action Network, and they have Florida State versus Utah in the Holiday Bowl, which would
do you know
be
who does
San Diego.
this projection for them?
Who is that?
It's our old friend Brett McMurphy.
Oh, is it okay? I knew he was with them. All right.
They he got the bag from Action Network and went over there, and Brett's a good dude to hang out with. Yeah. I got pretty lit with him at ACC Media Day after the final day, and this would be an awesome matchup. Like, this might be one you and I have to go to, like the Holiday Bowl, San Diego between Christmas and New Year. I could see us making the trip out there to that one in San Diego. Classic bowl game. I mean, I think of all like the BYU there from back in the 80s and some of the Barry Sanders stuff. And guys, Utah's a good football team. Like, they've improved a pretty good bit since they played and lost to Florida on that goal line stand in the swamp in week 0. Cam Rising's a really nice quarterback. Like, this would be a fun test for you, but it's also a game you could win. Like, I don't think you'd be favored or dogged by more than 3 points. It just kind of depends on what Vegas thinks that day. But it would be within 3 either way. So, like, that would be a fun matchup that I'd actually really want to watch. Next one here. Let me ask you about, are you excited about potentially going to Annapolis, Maryland in December to play in the Military Bowl against Cincinnati?
I mean, Annapolis is incredible. Annapolis is really cool. I don't know that I would like to go up there as a football fan in December. I will tell you that for 6 years in a row, I went to just the other side of Annapolis in January to go like duck and goose hunting and stuff like that. So that's different, but not necessarily something that your average football fan would do. So this is in Annapolis. I thought this was in DC, or I guess
I thought it was DC too, but like they listed as Annapolis. Maybe okay. I'm incorrect on
Annapolis. Is much, I'd probably prefer Annapolis. Annapolis is state capital, really pretty. But no, I passed. Miss me on this one. When we're talking about potential of higher profile games or better locations to go to a bowl game, I think kind of neither box is checked here.
Yeah, Cincinnati, if we did play them, extremely good at receiver. Like, they have one of the better receiving corps you'll see all year. Some guys with legitimate speed and probably 2 NFL dudes on the outside. Horrendous at quarterback. Like, it'll be very if you want to keep the streak up of just dudes who cannot complete passes on air, play Cincinnati. This guy had 2 70-yarders, 70 and a 50-yarder on screens, and had under 50% completions on the night when they beat East Carolina. They have a defensive end named Pace, who's just he transferred from Miami, Ohio, freakazoid, and my guess is an opt-out. Like, for him, he would be yeah. So you wouldn't play him, and then you'd probably beat the Cincinnati team by, like, I don't know, 15, 20. So, yeah, I'd prefer not to do that one. Here's one, which is like just a very interesting one. How about this is from 24/7 Sports, where I work. the Cheez-It Bowl in Orlando, which I think is the old Champ Sports Bowl,
Okay.
against Kansas State.
Fascinating. Kansas State's at times impressed me, at times has not impressed me at all this year, but I guess that's certainly somebody could say that from about Florida State as well. I'm glad that you identified that. I did not pick up on the origins of the Cheez-It Bowl, but that does give us
I'm pretty sure it's the old Champ Sports Bowl.
a reference point. What Florida State played, Wisconsin and Notre Dame in a 4-year window back in the day there. So some fond memories. But yeah, I would be fairly interested about that one. I would.
Kansas State has multiple future NFL players on its defensive line, so that would be certainly another test for Alex Atkins' group.
And we
passing game not really existent with Adrian Martinez.
I was going to say we would get to see the legend that is the 12-year college football player that is Adrian Martinez.
Jared Verse might force like 12 fumbles in the game. Let's stay with the Cheez-It Bowl, by the way, before we go to this next one. So the Sporting News has the Cheez-It against Texas. And this is just, I think this is the one I want. If we don't get to go to San Diego to play Utah, which would be fun, and a matchup like you very rarely get to see. Playing Texas, first of all, it's a major brand. They're an up-and-coming team. This is crazy. I know what the Vegas power ratings are. They would be favored in the game over the Noles. So you get an upset win, although like I kind of trust Mike and his staff over what Sark's doing right now. But I know Texas is playing extremely well on the metric side. I like where this Florida State team is right now.
This is also the Cheez-It Bowl?
Yeah, in Orlando.
Okay. In Orlando. I think you're going the same place I'm going. It's the Baxter Bowl. We're renaming it for about a year. A 5-star
Baxter Bowl. I like
playing in his hometown. Seeing Florida State and Clemson, Florida State and Texas play. Now, obviously, the bowl game is well after early signing day, but
also there's zero chance Bijan Robinson plays in this game.
Yeah, and I wasn't going to go. There's part of me that kind of wonders if you're going to see Jared Verse for Florida State side as well. That would be one other guy that I would point on the list, depending on what his. I mean, look, we'll just have to let it play out. But if this kid gets
a grade out,
if any of these kids get a first round grade or a top 40 grade, not sure you see him playing in the Cheez-It Bowl, and I wouldn't necessarily hold it against him either.
Yeah, 100%. A couple more here. Not the old, but just the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville against Kentucky. I like the idea of playing another SEC team and beating them. That's always good for
another
recruiting.
Beatable SEC team is nice.
You get a first-round draft pick in Will Levis, who really struggled against Vanderbilt last weekend. So I'm not sure how first-roundy he's actually looking. The next time he plays like a first-rounder will be the first time that he does so. But I was hoping to get a different SEC team here. Like Texas A&M was the one I was going to pick, and I looked down the list, man. Ingrid, I'm not seeing them on the bowl eligible list.
I haven't been able to find them either. No. The matching up against Texas A&M.
Maybe next week when they play UMass, he'll get bowl eligible.
Yeah, but they won't. I can tell you, actually.
Wait. They have 7 losses now?
It's no bowl game for Mr. Jimbo.
Oh, sad. That is sad. We did get a Twitter question. Would FSU have fired Jimbo if he had not gone A&M? And I was like, definitely not that year because they owed him $40 million. But by now, I think the answer is yes. If the conduct had continued.
Yeah, Jimbo. Yeah, I don't know.
It was not a tenable situation.
Not a tenable situation. I don't think he would have made it out of 18. I mean, I agree. But yeah, who knows?
They would have found something. All right, last one here from SI, the Duke's Mayo Bowl.
Duke Mayo. So this is the former Belk Bowl, right?
Belk Bowl, yeah.
Okay. No interest in this at all, although there's a hilarious subplot here to play in Illinois. But Charlotte, no thanks. Illinois, there's some funny stuff. Also, I'd rather play somebody other than Illinois, but if you're,
a lot of kids from Florida on that Illinois roster, by the way.
A lot of Illinois is a talented roster, certainly. Yes.
personally, my co-host on Cover 3, Tom Fernelli, is a huge Illinois fan, and like they don't make
Mm.
bowls very often, so he's extremely excited that they're just going to go to a bowl. And
Would
I'm
be the
like,
Tom and Bud Bowl. Yeah, that would be good. That would be good. Good for Mr. Fornelli.
I laugh at like, haha, yeah, not going to bowls very often. Like, actually, like Florida State hasn't been
Yeah,
to a bowl in a couple of years, so like we're gonna need to get back to one here, man. I think Florida State would win this ball game just because they're multifaceted, and with the amount of man coverage Illinois plays, I feel like Jordan could have a nice day because you can actually get off man coverage this year with some of these nice receivers that the Noles have added in the transfer portal. So honestly, like this is a pretty good selection of bowl games to go to. Like Military Bowl, I hope not. No offense to the military, obviously, but want to go to a bowl with a little bit better opponent and not play an American Conference team. Let me ask you this: if UCF gets upset, would you want to play UCF?
I don't really. There's not a whole lot to be gained by playing UCF. I don't
Agreed.
have
I
a
think you would
interest
wreck them
in
though.
it. Yeah. Well.
Like especially if like Verse and Lovett play.
Right. Yeah.
I think you would do pretty well against those guys. But who knows? All right, recruiting.
Let's get to recruiting. Before we do, you will have a couple weeks here where you won't have to worry about a bowl. Simply go to a game in Tallahassee. And if you do, or if you're already in Tallahassee, make sure that you visit our friends at Charlie Park. Charlie Park is Tallahassee's best rooftop bar. Charlie Park rooftopbar.com is the website. We certainly recommend reservations there Friday night and Sunday for their brunch in particular. But look, fantastic place, great place for Bud and I to be able to go have a cocktail, meet sponsors. It is a fantastic kind of oasis, and not uncommon to hear people remark that they have a hard time believing they're still in Tallahassee or whatever else. I don't know if that'll be your personal experience, but I can guarantee you a very aesthetically pleasing place, fun to look out over the park there, and absolutely fantastic list when it comes to scotches, bourbons, and other liquors. So Charlie Park, great place. Thanks for your support.
All right. So recruiting. Let's first address the elephant in the room with Lucas Simmons and Florida. I do not think that this is a Rod Kearney situation. Okay. For those of you all not familiar, Lucas Simmons is your high 4-star offensive tackle from Clearwater. He's been committed to FSU for like 5 or 6 months now, I think it is, and maybe a little bit less. But anyway, like he's been committed since the summer, and has a good relationship with Alex Atkins. Knows there's early playing time to be had in Tallahassee, and obviously I think is pretty well informed about the opportunities that can be had in Tallahassee all around, on and off the field. He did take a visit this weekend to Florida, and that had people freaking out because Rod Kearney took a visit to Florida. He was a longtime FSU commit, and Florida flipped the kid. I'm not telling you there's a 0% chance of a flip here. I think anytime a player takes a visit elsewhere, it is somewhat unsettling for the staff to which he's committed. I'm not an idiot. I've done this for a long time. I'm not trying to get old takes exposed or whatever that account is, especially because the guy who runs that's a Gator. But I don't think he's going to flip to Florida. Nobody I talk to currently thinks there's a legitimate, like a real chance of it. Not a 0% chance, but nobody thinks it's like it's 50-50 or he's going to have another decision to make or anything like that. From my understanding, the staff knew about the visit ahead of time. I think it was communicated like he was going with his team. I think it ended up being like a couple coaches and several teammates who also went on the visit. Florida had a ton of players in this weekend. Most of them will not sign with Florida. It's not a knock on Florida. It's just math. They don't have a million spots in their class. He has a strong relationship with Alex Atkins. I just tend to think that this one is going to stick for the Noles, personally. I'm not super worried about this, and I figured we should just kind of say this off the top of the segment because that's probably the most popular question. Like, are we going to lose Simmons?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't particularly think so. Do you get what kind of vibe do you get from the guys you talk to?
No, I don't have a whole lot of panic buttons being pressed, but to be fair, this wasn't a great staff last year at knowing when to press the panic button. But I don't hear some of the outside noise necessarily that would support a whole lot of faith that UF was about to flip this kid. But we'll see. I'm more or less kind of where you are.
I think that's fair. Let me think here. Other guys that we need to have some updates on. You did have a couple kids visit Auburn over the weekend, so we'll get to them. One thing we probably need to monitor is so Chris Otto, the offensive tackle from Key West, right, who has been picking up a lot of steam. I do know that Florida State has been on him and liked him for quite a while, and so like he's a kid who they want to get on campus for visits. He is also a really high academic kid. Are you trying to write a message to me in our doc or okay,
No.
you're deleting something. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. All right, apologies. I was if you guys see me on YouTube, my eyes are darting up here. I'm like, what is Ingram trying to write here? And then we deleted the Patreon question from the other section, so we don't have to double ask it. I guess because we're like Ron Burgundy, just read whatever's on the screen in front of us. All right, so look, Keldrick Falk did go to Auburn over the weekend, and that's I don't know. Auburn doesn't have a coach right now. If you follow what they did, you watched that broadcast at all, I think you saw like the crazy energy that they're trying to promote right now with Cadillac Williams and the SEC network and stuff. And hey, I don't blame the SEC network for it. How in the hell do you promote that game between Auburn and A&M when the one can't fire their coach financially and the other one already did? It's just kind of you got to find some things, but they did have a pretty electric atmosphere there. I think he has a good relationship with Papuchis. And again, I'm not telling you there's 0% chance of a flip because you never like when your prospects visit elsewhere. But I don't feel super nervous about that one at the moment. We'll continue to sort of monitor the situation. So, that's kind of where I'm at on that.
Concerned on this one on my half, not because of any information, but just a whole lot of in-state kid. Auburn's always been the school that I've been concerned about here.
New coach coming in, maybe.
Yeah, a lot of in-home,
definitely,
in-state energy, whatever that. I mean, look, I'll give them credit. Auburn sold a game out when there was a battle of 3-win teams or whatever that they were watching over the weekend. I mean, that's not something you can accomplish at many places. But yeah, we'll just see. I don't have any information that makes me be concerned. This is just more somebody that's followed recruiting since they were 8 years old, and there's a lot of general pieces here that fit with a concerning. If you're an out-of-state program that has a kid committed that starts to look at an in-state school late in the process, particularly one that has a bizarre amount of momentum around it. So
they also their collective has a war chest right now, and their class sucks. So they got to spend it on somebody.
They need to win.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a prediction that at the very least we will see a boatload of articles about Auburn's pursuit of a lot of these kids that are committed elsewhere down the final stretch. We come early signing day this year is December 21st, which is because it's the latest date it can possibly be because the month of December starts on a Thursday.
Wow. Okay, that is much later than I thought it was. Interesting.
Yeah, it's usually. I'm pretty sure, right? Unless I missed
you're
something
right
here on our calendar.
You know this better than I do, man. I just
no. I mean,
it was
I may have jacked it up.
It was December 10th last year, so that is a pretty big movement.
Yeah, it is December 21st. So that's annoying, honestly. But most kids sign early. They don't take the full 3 days and sign up. Like they're not going to sign on the 23rd. Most of them, I think. Probably some kid from Washington will wait and do it like Christmas Eve and be annoyed that we didn't tweet out his stuff enough. All right, whatever. Not that's ever happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other high school stuff that
I think for the most part you are like update wise. I think we should probably talk Portal a little bit here. I know you had some good topics to hit here, so let's lay them on me. Like first, I guess I'll just say I think we do still take 7+ transfers in this class. It's pretty clear you're going to need 1 to 2 defensive linemen. Almost certainly going to need 2 defensive backs. Which is that a commentary on the room and the development of that room? I think so.
Mm-hmm.
If you can read between the lines there, maybe. You may need a quarterback. I don't think you need a receiver unless a really special one comes. I think you definitely need a tight end, maybe two. I mean, that tight end room still is not any good. At least, and I don't know if they're going to be ready for next year. A couple tight ends I think you could probably look at that we'll go over next episode. Offensive line, I think you probably need 1 to 2. You may need a backer. I mean, like I think 7 transfers, I think would be the bare minimum you take this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it will be interesting to see how this program tries to balance the portal with high school and the success that has come this season. That success is not going to be felt immediately when recruiting high school kids. There's a much higher chance that you can have that in the portal. So I've been talking about it for a couple months now. I'm fascinated to see how they handle their numbers here and how they manage, their own ability to bring kids in that we can kind of laugh and wink at each other about tampering, but you don't really know a whole lot about anything right now. I mean, you're trying to, and maybe you will with as late a signing day as you have. That'll help give you a little bit of clarity. What, the portal opens on the 4th? Is that right, bud? It's first week of December, one way or another.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's may actually be beneficial to Florida State with how it sets up. A December 10th signing day would not be friendly to Florida State and kind of what I'm describing here. Nonetheless, you got to take kids, and you have to take kids that continue to fit the culture that's being built here. And I know that's kind of a buzzword and stuff, but it's true. And it's, one of the things that has make this program successful is that Mike has had certainly been lucky some, but has done a really good job in evaluating not just the players, but the impact that they'll have on a locker room. And, we'll see what that means long-term and if that can be sustained. But it's going to be a hell of a balance and a hell of a balance to watch play out as fans, how we see, is that going to have a pretty big impact on how many late reaches you make in high school? Absolutely.
Yeah. Can I say something here on this? I thought about something here. So 2 things. Number 1, this is the first time the staff has had momentum to go get high schoolers. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? Like, I don't want them to like, if you're an FSU fan, you don't want the staff to just go get high schoolers just because they can. You have to get the right high schoolers, because you do need to save some room for next year's class if you think you're going to be here long term. And obviously, with every win, the chance the staff, at least Mike, is here long term increases. On the other hand, you do not want to be a team that is relying on the portal all the time. The very best schools out there are still not being built through the portal. Georgia has no transfers on its team, 0. And Kirby will tell you that. Clemson, I think, has 1, and they took him as like a grad student type thing. Ohio State has a couple, but the vast majority of Ohio State starters are not from the portal. Michigan, kind of the same way, right? They think they have like 2 starting for them from the portal. There is a risk if you go crazy portal every year that eventually you get negatively recruited on the high school side, because they're like, hey, they're not going to care about you. And this is total BS, by the way, in my opinion. But like, the negative recruiting will come and they'll say, hey, they're just going to take these guys who are experienced juniors or seniors. You're not going to get the play early because they load that team up with transfers every year. Now, the high school kid may respond with, well, hey, man, I've always been the best player on my team from the time I was 4 years old, right? So screw you. I'm going to go there and start, which is kind of the attitude you want in the guys you sign. But I'm saying it is a delicate balancing act that this staff will have to follow.
Yeah. Well, if you've got a delicate balancing act on your hands at work, I can assure you that there's nobody else that you would rather have than Matt Lewis and his team at Congruity. Congruity is nothing short of a brilliant business partner for us, and it has been for many of our listeners. I think maybe 7 organizations. I'll have to go back and get an actual count, but I think next week we'll announce another that I'm real excited to say came via the Nolecast. And again, whether it be HR, accounting, anything that you think is keeping your business from being optimized, congruityhr.com is the website. And if you feel like reaching out to me, as many of our listeners have done for a third-party introduction, please feel free to do so. Big thanks to Matt Lewis and his team.
No doubt. And by the way, I said no doubt. It's a crutch. As a dollar in the fine jar. Apparently, I say that too much on this show, so I'll try to work on that. You asked me, do I sense a renewed optimism about J Trav coming back? Kind of. I'm not really sure where it's coming.
Okay,
but I do sense it. Do you think it's because he's not making a whole lot of like big time throws and like NFL type throws in the last couple of weeks? I don't know.
I don't know. I really am not sure where it's coming from. I think Jordan has continued to play himself into a level where he gets, potentially drafted in like the 5th round or something like that. And if that's the case, I don't think he's coming back. And you can have an interesting argument about, money in a 1-year situation and living in the state of Florida, and that's awesome. And I don't dismiss that. But if this is a kid who wants to play in the NFL, then was he 23 this year or something like that? I mean,
Yeah.
it's probably the direction he's going to go in. It will be obviously a very definitive decision as far as what our expectations and thoughts are for what the 23 team looks like. But I don't just think that oh, we're going to pay this kid $600,000 or $800,000 or whatever it may be in a 1-year NIL deal. Who knows?
I think he's worth $1 million in a 1-year deal. I mean, you got coordinators making $1 million, right? Like in a 1 year. That's the thing. Like I think it's for some of these 5-star quarterbacks probably kind of crazy to pay them, like, hypothetically, like maybe you're a quarterback in California that just signed. Like maybe you got like 1.5, 2.5, 3.5 and a balloon payment of 4 or something like that for your 4th year. Which, first of all, I would never write a contract if I'm actually trying to reward by value that gives the most money in the 4th year. Because think about it. Like if you're actually as good as I hope you are and I'm paying you millions of bucks, I want you gone after 3 years. I want you to go play in the league. But for a single year thing, this is like, you see this in baseball. Some of these teams will offer these guys a 1-year deal.
Veteran pitchers in particular.
Yes, like the Verlander deal, right? I mean, just like, hey, here's 1 year at $45 million. Okay, that's a boatload of money, but it doesn't have that long-term risk for you. And there is some certainty associated with quarterback. And I don't even think Jordan's like a top 5 quarterback in the sport, or probably not even a top 10, to be honest. But like, so you can't tell me that in a sport where I think more than half of the Power 5 has $1 million coordinator, that like a top 15-ish quarterback for 1 year isn't worth $1 million. Like, if he's a difference between like a win or maybe even like a 1.5 over who else you have on the roster, maybe not who else you can get in the portal, but who else you have in the roster, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, worth it. I would agree. We'll see if it happens. I don't know that it's worth it for Jordan either. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of more my point. Is getting 1.1 really worth it if you think that that's going to stop you from or slow down your development of being an NFL quarterback or whatever it is that you're.
If you think he's going to be an NFL quarterback,
whatever it is that helps you land on an NFL roster for 5 years or whatever it is that you can get a pension out of in a best case scenario. Yeah, I don't know. This will be fascinating to see play out. I still lean on that kid leaving. I certainly don't. That doesn't mean like I have a invested a thing that I all of a sudden want to see Jordan leave because that's my opinion or something. That's absurd. It would obviously be better for Florida State if he were to come back. But this we'll just have to see how this one plays out.
I agree with that. I what's the grade and does he trust the grade? Right? Like if he gets a good grade, he should leave. Obviously. Like if you get a draftable grade, go. Or especially, well, maybe not like a 7th rounder, but if you think that if you get like a top 100 grade, then yeah, go. Like absolutely, man, go. Like you're going to make more money as a 3rd rounder than you will in NIL in pretty much any school. And it also does start your clock, as you mentioned. If you get like a fringe draft grade, coming back, like you get free housing, you get free food, You get free trainers. I mean, pretty much everything is free. You have like no expenses. I don't know what Jordan's like. I don't know if he has kids or not. To my knowledge, he does not. I mean, I'm just speaking on term, but like, I think it's fair to say that like a college kid has very little expenses, you know. So like maybe electric bill, uh, internet, cell phone, that type of thing. You're like, if you get anywhere close to $1 million, it's very easy to think you're clearing like 750 while still living an incredibly good lifestyle in Tallahassee. Probably like clearing more like 850, you know, taxes and whatnot, etc. But still. All right. Fabian and Jamie got invited to the Senior Bowl. Did you see that?
I did see that. Yeah, good for Jamie. Fabian, I think it's positive news for him as far as personally, as far as what his draft grade looks like. I think that's a kid that's going to go make some money, and that's good. And even better that the injury that he had doesn't seem to have, you know, sidetracked his evaluation in the FLIs either. So,
how many guys are on a Senior Bowl roster?
Zero clue.
All right. Let me look here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. No, it's actually 6 pages. 6 pages. Good God. Here, I'm just going to put this in Excel real fast so I can tell you. I have a point to this. So I'm looking here to see like how many Senior Bowl invites go out each year. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
All right. So 6 pages of 50. There's no way they have 300 Senior Bowl invites. That can't be right. These rosters have got to be just jacked up from last year or something like that. Cal Anderson. Oh, okay. Never mind. Ingram. They did them in alphabetical. They did them by number, and then they did them by position. So it looks like 100 guys, or maybe 110, get invited to the Senior Bowl. There are what 230 picks in the draft when you think about the comp picks. Not all the Senior Bowl guys will go in the top 100 or in the first 3 or 4 rounds, but a decent number of them get invited will. I think it's probably fairly safe to say that Lovett's going to get, you know, some kind of decent grade. You know, not like they don't do the exact rounds anymore. I think it's like first round, top 100, and then return to school. I'd be surprised if he got the return to school grade.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't. Then they've gotten even more ambiguous than they were.
Yeah, they used to be a little more specific, but I think they realized like they're not that good at figuring stuff out. So
first round,
little less egg on their face. Yeah,
so
or whatever it is.
It goes from we think you're a 3rd round grade to return to school, more or less. I mean,
yeah, it's weird. Grades are given. I remember talking to somebody about this last year, return to school. Hey, what? Buying this quieter keyboard was this was good, man. Much better than the old one.
Much better, absolutely.
Although it's kind of made me lazier during the show because I can look things up during the show as opposed to just doing like a boatload of pre-show work. All right, I can't find this. Pre-draft grade? I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, we're at like the hour and 10-minute mark of this show. I'm gonna end it.
All right.
We'll figure it out the next one.
All right. I was having an internal debate as to whether you were going to let yourself have the show end or if you were just going to be like, damn it, I'm finding this before we ended. So, all right, y'all. I appreciate it. Great to be able to get behind a microphone of a team that's won 7 games and a program that has a little bit of wind in its sails. So it's been a fun year, crazy year, but awesome to see Florida State start to put the right foot forward again. And we'll be back with a instant reaction on Saturday. Well, we'll preview it first, and an instant reaction on Saturday from the
with an asterisk.
Yes, yeah. Well, that won't. I don't I don't know that we'll be pressing record moments after that one ends, but we'll see.
Have
We'll see.
a birthday party for a special 4-year-old who just completed his last chemo treatment
Oh, brilliant.
on Sunday, and so it will be uh, not super instant, but we'll get it done. And
Oh,
they're a Knowles family as well, so
I did not know
um,
that was the situation, but that's exceptional. Awesome.
no doubt. Awesome, man. Well, I will talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, brother. Talk soon.